I was looking for a coach. I had been looking for someone to help me as a business coach. Within like the first couple of hours, as you were going through like what is possible as a thought leader, it just lit a spark in me. My income actually grew because of the thought leadership piece through you, through eCircle, the community that's been around me. That has been so exceptionally critical for how I've achieved the life of my dreams. You really have to make sure that you are building a life that creates freedom, meaning, value, and purpose, and that purpose is connected to other people. The gratitude and prayer and connection to God is absolutely critical because this is who it's all for.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou. And boy, do we have an exciting guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is a repeat guest. This is her third time on the show. She is my sister from another mister. She has been a member of our high-level educational mastermind, eCircle Academy, and she has been one of our brightest stars and greatest success stories. She happens to be one of the leading thought leaders in the world when it comes to health and high performance. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Dr. Val Franc. Welcome to the show, Dr. Val.
Thank you for that lovely, warm, and generous introduction.
My pleasure. So, Val, you know the drill. You've been on the show before. You've listened to the show. The people that listen to this show are all heart-driven entrepreneurs. They're all people who want to make a difference for themselves, who want to make a difference for the people that they serve, and they want to live life as the best version of themselves. So a lot of them will know who you are because they've been listening to the show for a while, but we got a bunch of newbies. So why don't you just start off by telling us your backstory real briefly? How'd you become the great Dr. Val?
Thank you so much. And so I'll try to keep the backstory a little bit brief. But, I'm naturopathic doctor. Right now, I've been in practice for 22 years. And I had a really great, I've always had a really great practice. I love what I do, always passionate about it, always, it's a joy. In 2019, my dad was diagnosed with glioblastoma, with a brain tumor that was terminal. I knew I have, on average, a year to spend with him. And so I wanted to find 10,000 ways to say I love you and goodbye. And I just wanted to spend that quality time with him. Of course, I'm daddy's girl. He was just such an incredible man. I loved him so much. Of course, your father, everybody does, but it was so devastating to me that my practice started suffering. And I knew for him, he always had such a strong work ethic, and he really believed in value and service and giving back to the world. And he's like, you come from privilege, those who have privilege have greater responsibility to act strongly within the world. And he was such a phenomenal entrepreneur as well. And so I knew that if my business was suffering because of him, if he thought my business was suffering because of him, it would devastate him. So I'm like, okay, I have to do better. I have to be better. I have to be his daughter, who he guided me to be. So I reached out to you, Nikki. I was looking for a coach. I had been looking for someone to help me as a business coach for a couple of years, didn't find the right person, connected with you, and you said, hey, let's just come to the immersion. You'll see what it's about. And I thought, okay, yeah, let's just see what it's about. There's no commitment. I just wanted to go to the immersion. As you know, like the first day of the immersion, within like the first couple of hours, as you were going through like what is possible as a thought leader, it just lit a spark in me. And I knew, okay, this is the place for me. So I know I've always been a spark and go person. So if I spark, I know it's the right thing. And that's been that passion and following that spark, that intuition, divine guidance, whatever you want to call it. That's always been the part of my formula for success. So I knew the thought leader part was what I had been looking for years. And so then through that thought leader journey, as we first started, my father ended up passing away in 2020, in January of 2020. And then right after that point in time, you told me, okay, go on vacation because, this has been such a traumatic time for you. You need time to process. You need time to heal. So I went to a beautiful vacation in Mexico for a couple of weeks, and then came back. I was home for 2 weeks, and then basically COVID hit and everything shut down. And that was shut down basically from March until I could start practicing again in July. And because of the thought leadership piece, because of the work that we had already done together, throughout that time that could have devastated my business, that could have caused that, and that did cause other naturopaths to have to use other resources to help support their income. I had an income coming in. And so my income actually grew because of the thought leadership piece. So for the year of 2019, even though my dad was diagnosed and my income had started to decline, by the end of that year, my income was up from the year before. And in 2020, my income actually exceeded 2019, despite all of the challenges, changes, and transition. So the thought leadership piece and everything that I've been learning through eCircle, the community that's been around me, that has been so exceptionally critical for how I've achieved the life of my dreams, which basically I'm living the life of my dreams now.
Wow, what a spectacular story. So I want to ask you if you could take the listener on a bit of a journey, because they're listening to this and they're probably thinking to themselves, okay, being a thought leader sounds pretty cool, especially if you can, 5-10-fold your income. I'm in for that. I think everybody wants to add the zero to their income, right? At least the zero. And they're wondering to themselves, well, how did you do it, Val? Like, what was the first step you took? So why don't you kind of walk us through that? What was the first kind of thing you did that made a difference for you inside of your practice and your business that helped you start to increase your income?
Well, I would say the first thing that I did was follow my passion, follow the spark. And so as even becoming a naturopathic doctor, I had an undergraduate degree in nutrition. And then through my own health issues, ended up discovering I had food sensitivities. And I found that there was this whole world of nutrition that naturopaths had access to, that people who are trained as nutritionists and trained under the or dietitians trained under that Western medical nutrition pathway, they don't have access to that information. So there's this whole new world that opened up. And so then there was that spark of passion that said, hey, you guys have secret knowledge. Naturopaths have secret knowledge. I want to know what you know. And so I followed that spark, became a naturopathic doctor, and then had this passion for it. And then started to get this passion for, hey, I want to learn more about mind, body, spirit connection. So took about a course to become a hypnotherapist. And so I was like, oh, got to do that. Then I heard about a course to go to China and study extra acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine in China. Oh, the spark, I got to do that. Then, there's all these little sparks along the way that just led me to kind of say, this is where I'm being led. This is where my passion is. And as I followed that, again, studying to be a yoga instructor, studying in Hawaii with a yogi, it's just all of those little sparks of interest and passion and following that and taking the action on it. That's always been the key to my success. So when I actually had that thought leader piece come in with you, there was that spark that as soon as I was there, I just knew like, oh, this is it. And I followed that intuition. Taking that action, that intelligent action that's guided from passion, is the first critical step, because so many times we talk ourselves out of it. And so many times, I have the beautiful blessing through everything that the work that we've done together, everything that's been dropped into my lap as a blessing from this thought leadership piece. I'm in Hawaii right now. Just finished meeting with Steve Anderson, who is the coach for Vanuatu's Olympic women's beach volleyball team. And we'd gone through the pro tour. I was able to be the team doctor through the pro tour in Italy, and then go to Birmingham to the Commonwealth Games. And then we met here in Hawaii to just do a lot of planning for the future, for the team, for things that we want to accomplish. And what we were really talking about is you always have to be innovating. And there are so many people who want a certain lifestyle or who want to create something in their business, and you can get stagnated or you can let fear stop you. So taking that action to follow the spark, and don't think about how am I going to accomplish this? What is going to happen? What about the consequences? Just, this is what I want. I'm taking the action, whatever price that it is that I need to pay for it, I'm going to make it happen. So having that intelligent action is critical, following that intuition and spark. Then what I would say the real key to everything is, and to the business, because I've had a really good colleague of mine, we've had discussions, and she's like, I've seen what's been happening in your practice since you joined eCircle. I've seen, you were kind of on this because we actually had met, she knew me pre-COVID, or we met around COVID time. Online, when everything moved online, we met that way. And she keeps telling me, I've seen what your practice is doing, and it started having this mild, gentle incline, and now it's basically straight up. She's like, it's amazing, all of the opportunities and what you're creating. How are you doing it? And I said, to be honest, all of the principles come down to the principles that what you and Mark von Musser have been saying, which is really, you've got to start first and foremost with a gratitude practice. You've got to start with getting rid of the mind trash, what you call the belief tables. Yep. And you really have to make sure that you are really building a life that creates freedom, meaning, value, and purpose, and that purpose is connected to other people. So we started by dialing in the why really early on. And the why for me was leaving a legacy for my dad. And now the why has expanded to beyond that legacy, to have this positive impact on my profession, and to enhance and promote naturopathic medicine globally. And so there are these opportunities that are coming in where I really get to feel like I've had value and significance for the people and the things that I love, and for my patients as well. So that's a big key factor. So passion, purpose, intelligent action. But at the base of all of that, again, is that gratitude practice and the mindset work. That is absolutely critical. I attribute everything to having that mindset practice, that gratitude, that shift in terms of getting rid of a lot of the mind trash, and then the community of support. With you, with Mark, with Teresa. When my father passed away, you guys were there, right there to pick me up. You and Teresa were able to come to the funeral and to the reception, and that touched my heart. And then the day after my dad's funeral, you actually had another immersion. I was able to step into that and be there, to be around a community, because I knew if I was alone and isolated, I would collapse. So I was able to go and be at that immersion, and Mark was there in person, and to be able to have physical connection to people who are like family with you and Mark, and to know that I had that support no matter what, that was absolutely critical for my success as well. So it's been a number of different things, but I can't emphasize enough how critical that mindset piece is. And so now I've blocked it into my day, where the first 2 hours of my day are dedicated to my exercise, my nutrition, and my mindset, and gratitude and prayer. The gratitude and prayer and connection to God is absolutely critical, because this is who it's all for.
Amen. Amen. So beautifully put. Honestly, I was listening to you and I was just relearning a bunch of this stuff myself. I'm going to go, yeah, that's right. That's true. I should take notes. That was coming through my head. But you talked about the spark and acting on it. Like Mark calls it decisiveness, right? That the moment you got to go, you just decisively take action. And I also am a big fan of the work of Napoleon Hill, right? And he tells the story of how he got his start in business, because he used to be a reporter, and his editor had sent him to go interview who was the richest man in the world at the time, which was Andrew Carnegie, the Scotsman that built, the steel empire in the United States. So he had a 3-hour interview. I guess they had a lot more time then. It wasn't so compressed back then. And the interview went really well. I mean, he got a lot of great quotes from him, a lot of great information. And at the end of it, Andrew Carnegie said, "Hey, how would you like to spend the weekend at my estate, young man?" Now, I don't know what you would do if the richest person in the world came to you and said, "Would you like to spend the weekend at my estate?" I would clear my calendar pretty much. I mean, there wouldn't be too many things that would make me say no. Let's just leave it at that, right? So, of course, he said yes, and he spent the whole weekend there. And at the end of the weekend, Andrew Carnegie came to him and he said, "Mr. Hill, I have a proposition for you. How would you like to spend the next 20 years researching my philosophy of success? I will not pay you a stipend to do this, so you'll need to fund your own way. But what I will do is I will give you letters of introduction to the 500 richest and most successful men and women in the United States." So Napoleon Hill said he took 31 seconds to make up his mind and said, "Yes, I'll do it," right? And the rest is history. He became Napoleon Hill. And, 20 years later, he had all this success, and he got to meet the great man one last time before he passed away, because he was getting on in years at that time. And Andrew Carnegie went to him and he said, "If you hadn't made up your mind, this may have not gone that way." He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "I had a stopwatch under the table, and I was giving you 1 minute to make up your mind. And if you had not made up your mind in a minute, I was going to pull the offer." And Napoleon Hill was shocked at that. He was completely shocked. And he said, "Oh, why?" And then Carnegie looked at him and said, "Oh, why? Well, you tell me. You've been studying my philosophy of success. You tell me." And he said, "Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's because successful people act decisively and quickly." And he said, "That's right." And he said to him, "I'd had 4 of the most eminent educators in the United States that I had met with prior to meeting you. I had offered them what I had offered you. All of them said, 'I'll need to get back to you. I need a week.' None of them got back to me in a week. 2 of them got back to me in a month and said no, and 2 of them never got back to me at all." And he said, "In my world, when we know that something's a go, we just say yes right away, and we don't mess around." And that is what causes God to give success to you, because God is giving you a chance. He's saying, "You want it." And you have a chance to say yes or no. And if you say no, he won't give it to you. But if you say yes, boom, it happens. And it seems like you've believed in that philosophy all your life.
Yeah. And, Steve and I were kind of talking about, okay, he's at the point where he's been the first at a lot of different things. And he's, broken a lot of world records, and, no one's done it. Some of the things that he's done, no one's accomplished that before he did it. So we were talking about how companies and people who are truly successful are always innovating, and they can't necessarily see the next step. They just take the leap and build this next step as they're coming down, right? They don't know where they're going to land next. They know what they need to do. They know what the total vision is. And then they're like, this is the next action that I'm going to take. They don't worry about how is all of this going to manifest? How is this all going to happen? If you try to plan some of that stuff yourself, you're not going to be able to plan it or execute it as efficiently and as effectively as letting God take the lead. And so there's this constant need for innovation. So never get complacent with where you're at. And so we were talking about businesses and people that we know who have businesses that are very successful or lucrative to a certain extent, and then they become trapped in it. So they want this other life of freedom and value and impact and meaning, and they're kind of stuck in we're making a really good income with what we're doing, and for example, and so we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing. and they're just running this treadmill and this rat race. It's not necessarily fueling them or giving them that meaning and value and impact. And so if you're not always constantly innovating and making the journey fresh and exciting and, being of value, whatever success or financial success or whatever success you achieve that looks like what someone else has taught you that it should look like, it's not going to feel meaningful when you get it. It's going to feel kind of empty. It's going to drain and deplete you. But if you're that type of person who is always innovating and you're just like, okay, this is the overall overarching mission. This is the purpose. This is what is in alignment for how I want to be in the world to serve God. But God's going to do the heavy lifting. So I'm going to surrender it. And if this is what you say that all the time, let God do the heavy lifting, right? And so with respect to that surrender, when you are able to say, okay, God, here's, I do my vision PowerPoint in the morning, for example. And as I'm looking at the things that I want to achieve and have happen, I always do prayer with my vision PowerPoint. And my vision board. Some people do a vision board. I do a vision PowerPoint, but I always put prayer with it because, type A. Yeah, I don't like the mess. I want my vision PowerPoint. Yeah, total type A. But I always connect that back to God, because if this is not for His glory, then I don't want it, because it's not going to have meaning, value, and significance. So it's always about, I feel the spark. I feel what is bringing me love, joy, and connection. I feel what's being sung into my heart. And I believe when you have a passion, that's what God is singing into your heart. So God is singing this in. I don't want anything to be about my ego. But again, it's in His divine timing, the way that He wants it to happen. And then you just let go of the how. And just take the next action, the next spark, the next spark. And all of these opportunities, since I've been doing that, have been just dropping into my lap. And all of these doors have opened in ways that I could never have planned. I could have never controlled. I could have never imagined. And so I have at the very, one of the sayings that I have on my vision PowerPoint is a life and a love more wonderful than I can imagine. And that is what God is bringing to me. And that's what God wants to bring everybody. It's just a matter of, are you going to listen? Are you going to let Him in? Does this have meaning and value and purpose? And if it does, you just, again, you can always be innovating, because you take the next step. You know that there's an opportunity. You're like, yes, I'm going to go for it. You don't let the mind trash and the fear talk you out of it. And you go for it. And then you take that leap of faith. And you say, I can't see where the next step is. I can't even see the whole staircase. I don't have to build it. But as I'm going to leap to that next step, I can't even see where that step is on the staircase, but I trust that God's going to provide it. And when you're in that co-creation, when you're in that flow, when you're in that space of love, joy, and gratitude, all of your dreams come true. And the ones that don't are the ones that aren't going to bring you meaning and value. And all of these new opportunities come up and you think, I never even knew I wanted that. I never even knew this could feel so wonderful, or I could achieve all of these wonderful things and have such, again, meaning, value, and impact. And so those are, I think, the keys to success.
Amen. You did a few things like from a technical point of view inside your practice as well, right? You got clear on who your ideal target market was. You got clear on their pain. You really positioned yourself to be able to speak to that, and boy, did they respond, right? Like you had a brilliant run of time where you actually were booked out weeks and weeks in advance, right?
I still am, yeah. And so what has been, it's further out in advance now, but because I'm so blessed. And you're right. When I really got clear about that passion and who I wanted to spend time with, like take the fear off the table, take the fear, like the money, take that off the table. I know Mark von Musser, one of the greatest things that he's ever said to me is like, listen, get the money out of the way with, make as much money as you need to in order to feel so full that you can just go and be of service and you don't have to worry about anything. But the money isn't really what people want. It's to have meaning, value, and significance, and that freedom and impact. Freedom and impact is what he boiled it down to, and he's so right. So getting the money out of the way is an important thing. But if you're not in that space, if you're still in a fear-based state, which a lot of people are because of, what happened with COVID, and then what we're hearing, happening in the global economy. And so a lot of people are focused on that. If you can just imagine that God's got this. He's going to provide you with as much money as you need. You're totally fine. You're totally safe. If it takes, $1 billion, just imagine you have that. What would you want to be doing? How would you want to be serving? What you have that freedom. Now what? And so if you start looking at it from that perspective, it'll help you listen to that spark. But a great thing that, Steve Anderson and I were talking about in terms of that mindset piece, because he attributes his success and the success of his teams. He taught, again, he coached for Australia, he coached for Canada, he coached Vanuatu, all in medal rounds. So they've all won medals. So they all have that standards. And what he attributes that to is the mindset piece. And so he said, look, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. There's a lot of darkness in the world. He said, I want to step up and be the light, not giving into that fear. If you give into that fear and you start thinking, I can't do this, and what about this, and maybe I can't go travel, or I can't do whatever, you can't be the greatest light for the world. And the world needs a lot of light right now. So instead of worrying about where the economy is going, the fact that the world seems to be spiraling into this descent of madness,
yes,
say, I don't know whether that's going to happen or not. I know I want to step up as a light so that I can be the greatest light to pull people out so that darkness doesn't happen. And so I think those are really important concepts to kind of look at when you're taking a look at how you want to grow your business. Because a lot of thought leaders right now, or a lot of people that want to get into that thought leadership space that I'm speaking to, they're like, well, I can't do what you do because of this, or I have this, or I can't create a vision PowerPoint. I can't create a vision board. I can't do that. Okay. So what can you do to change the mindset piece? Are you willing to take, some people, oh yeah, I do. I look at my vision board for 10 minutes in the morning. Yeah. Okay. Is that enough to change that stinking thinking? If it's not, you might want to add in more. Again, my practice is, a good 2 hours, because I get that's the foundation. If I don't have that, I don't have the other stuff. The other stuff happened because of this. So the opportunity came up again to go and be with Vanuatu, with them at the Commonwealth Games. If I didn't have the mindset piece in, if I was listening to the global economy and COVID and this and that, I wouldn't have gone. And what would I have missed if I didn't go? The opportunities, the things that I learned, how I grew, the ability to be able to support the team, that is an opportunity that's priceless. That it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so then from there, when Steve was kind of saying to me, okay, let's meet in Hawaii. Okay, let's go. Let's just do it. And now I'm going to be in Hawaii for a friend of mine said, well, why are you going back to Toronto from Hawaii? Because then you have to fly to speak at a conference in San Diego. So why are you flying back from Hawaii? You can travel. You can work from anywhere in the world. I'm like, oh yeah. So now, I get a lifestyle where I get to be in Hawaii until I fly to support this, to do this, speak at this retreat in San Diego. And then from there, I have the opportunity to speak in and help facilitate a retreat in Australia. So I'm going, that's the next stop. So if I had the mentality of, I need to worry about my finances, the global economy is about to crash. How am I going to do this, that, and the other thing? It would stop me from having these opportunities that are allowing that thought leadership piece to happen. And it would prevent me from really shining my light and really being able to have the impact that I want to be able to have.
Yeah, amen, sister. Really, really beautifully put. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's fantastic. There's a lot of people that are listening here that they want to learn what they got to do. The mindset of victory is the most important piece. That's what you've spent the most time on. We've talked about some of the things you've done technically, to niche down to the right market and have the right message and figure out their pain points and, charge so they show up ready to do the work. All that's been talked about, and that's important. But the most important thing is to get your mind right, get your heart right, get your soul right, and rock and roll and move forward.
I really truly believe that. I really truly believe that if I didn't, that first of all, if my ego got involved. So this is why I think I put the prayer as the absolute foundation and that connection to God, and saying like, okay, your will, not mine. This is what I'd love to do. This is what my heart is saying is the right thing, but you guide and direct me. So keeping that connection to this is all in service to you and in your glory. And if that's not the case, I don't want it. So having that, and then again, the mindset piece has allowed everything else to happen. It wouldn't happen otherwise. So that for me has been the most critical piece. Yes, it's great to get your message dialed in. Yes, it's fantastic. You have to do it. You have to cut through the noise. You have to know kind of the structure of how to create that and innovate. But again, that foundation has to be that spirit, the heart, and then the mind can come forward. And I think that connection to community is absolutely essential as part of that as well. That community and that service to a higher power, and having that commitment to something that's so much bigger than I am. So everything that I do, it's great that I'm having this ability in terms of the financial piece coming in. It's fantastic. It's not why I do what I do, but to have that meaning, value, impact, significance, and freedom, that's it. And I've been able to create that because of what I've learned through eCircle and through Mark. And again, the prayer, the gratitude, the message, so the mindset piece, that's the absolute foundation. In yoga, we say root to rise. You need that strong foundation, and then you can build upon it. If you don't root, if you don't have that strong foundation, everything collapses in on itself.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's the truth. Brilliantly put. So, Dr. Val, someone's listening to this show and they want to find out more about you and what you do and how to get in touch with you. What's the best way?
Probably actually to go to my website, drvalfranc.com. So doctor is DR and then VALFRANC. My last name is spelled with a C, it's not with a K. So that's probably the best way. They can send an email to info@drvalfranc.com. And they can also book a fireside chat on my website. So those are great ways to connect.
Awesome. We'll make sure all that gets into the show notes. And you know how we like to end off each episode. We ask you for your top 3 expert action steps, your best pieces of advice on how our listener can take their life, their business, and their health to the next level. So go for it.
So the first piece of advice, always be innovating. Follow that spark. The second piece of advice would really be, again, set that foundation. That gratitude, the prayer, the mind, working on the mind trash, the vision board, that's the real key to success. And then the surrender, making sure that everything that you do is for that higher purpose, that it fuels that passion, so that you can have the faith to say, okay, I'm gonna just take these actions. I trust that that God is working with me through this. It's all going to be according to his divine will and divine plan. I'm just going to take the steps that he sings into my heart and have the courage to grab it. I would say those are the greatest pieces of advice. And, don't give up on your dreams. And if you actually do all of those things, and you make sure you have that gratitude, you follow that spark, you create that mindset piece for yourself, and you take that action that's inspired. If you do that, everything will have meaning and value and significance. If you don't, whatever success, what you determine as success you achieve, how much money, how many people you see, how many, whatever you do, it's going to feel empty when you get there. So really living with that passion and purpose is critical.
I love those 3 expert action steps. They're brilliant. Fantastic. So listener, Dr. Valerie Franc is the real deal. She is amazing. She is a dear friend. She's my sister from another mister. And I've had the privilege of having had a role to play in her success. And that's fantastic. If you enjoyed this episode and you know someone who could use its message, share this episode with them. Send it to them. You'll be doing them a huge favor. Dr. Val's heart is going to touch them, is going to inspire them. And it just might be the thing that gets them to take action that will take their life to a whole new level. So make sure that you do that. And listener, take advantage of all the resources she's offered you. They're all in the show notes. Take advantage of them. I'm telling you, I'm not only is she a client of mine, I'm a client of hers. I'm a very grateful client. She knows what she's talking about. Take advantage of all of that. Dr. Val, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's amazing to have you here.
Thank you so much. As always, I love connecting and really appreciate and value having you in my life.
Ditto. And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. To find out more about today's incredible guest, the one and only Dr. Val, go to the show notes at thethoughtleaderrevolution.com or wherever you happen to listen to this episode, be it iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Audible, or what have you. Until next time, goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.